We're now live on YouTube, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Jeanette. Good evening, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this virtual Cabinet meeting. Before the meeting starts, could I ask that a roll call of members and officers attending be taken? Jeanette, please.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, Cabinet members, I'll read them out in alphabetical order. Councillor Tracy Abbott.
Present.
Councillor Richard Austin.
Present.
Councillor Martin Griggs.
Present.
Councillor Jonathan Noble.
Present.
Yourself, Chairman, obviously present. Councillor Paul Skinner. Councillor Yvonne Stevens.
Present.
Councillor Stevens. Councillor Madam Chairman of the Environment and Performance Committee, Councillor Judith Skinner.
Present.
Thank you. The officers attending are the Deputy Chief Executive for Place and Monitoring Officer, Michelle Sachs.
Thank you, Jeanette. Present.
The Deputy Chief Executive for People, Alison Penn.
Yes, present.
Assistant Director for Regulation, Christian Allen.
Good evening, present.
Thank you. Assistant Director, Support Services and Partnerships, Phil Perry.
Present, Jeanette.
Assistant Director for Housing and Wellbeing, Michelle Howard.
Yeah, Michelle sent her apologies, Jeanette.
Oh, thank you. Right. Economic Development Manager, Clive Gibbon.
Present, Jeanette.
Thank you. Museums, Arts and Heritage Manager, Luke Skerritt.
Present.
Thank you. Community Safety Manager, Peter Hunn.
Yeah, good evening, Jeanette. Present.
Thank you. Transformation and Governance Manager, Suzanne Rolfe.
Present.
Executive Support and Scrutiny Officer, Rebecca James.
Present.
Thank you. And myself, Jeanette Collier, from Democratic Services. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. So we move on to the preliminaries and part A. Have I the Cabinet's permission to sign the minutes of the meeting of the Cabinet held on the 5th of November 2020? If you've got any comments at all, please just raise your hands using the raise hands facility. No. So
No one's indicating, Chairman.
I will assume that you're in agreement with me to sign the minutes then.
Great.
Thank you very much for that. Moving on to B. Are there any apologies?
Thank you, Chairman. Purely from Michelle Howard, James Gilbert and Rob Barlow, officers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeanette. I believe they've got other commitments tonight.
That's
So,
correct.
thank you. We'll also get to the point now. Has anybody got any declarations of interest?
No one's indicated. Oh, I beg your pardon, Councillor Welton, Chairman.
Yes, not a declaration of interest. I was missed out in the roll call. I wouldn't want to be absent even though I'm here.
Oh, I do apologise. Sorry.
It's okay.
As if you could be forgotten. Right. D is, are there any questions from...
Sorry to interrupt, Chairman, but Councillor Abbott is indicating.
Yes.
It was a declaration of interest with regards to the scrutiny and overview. I was part of the panel for a while.
Thank you very much, Tracy. I suppose I've got to declare an interest because I attended some of those as well, but only to support. So, any further? No. So we'll move on from questions from members of the public.
Yes, Chairman, there's one question from a member of the public. Mr. Darren Abbott, I believe you have the question and officer response there.
Yes, I have. I'll read it out. The question from Mr. Abbott is a portfolio for open spaces, I'm assuming you're aware of the council facility just off London Road, which is known locally as Garfitts Park. There is a large recreational area, and along three sides of it has wonderful trees and hedgerows. Early in the year, Boston Borough Council allowed a stretch of this valuable stretch of wildlife habitat to be ripped out by a housing developer. Then on the 4th of November, Boston Borough Council decided to allow a contractor to virtually wipe out the additional stretch with a flail mower. As I am sure you are aware personally as a contributor to the RSPB, the Wildlife Trust and Boston Woods Trusts, so I would assume that you're supportive of conservation and preservation. I will also assume you're aware of how important the hedgerows are to our environment. And in winter, these hedgerows provide valuable shelter and food for our indigenous species and many migrating birds. Recently, conservationist Chris Packham posted a picture on Facebook very similar. The ones hired provided along with the following comment: "Hello, I'm a redwing. I have just flown from Scandinavia to feast on your winter berries, but oh well, I'll just starve then." Would you like to explain to me why Boston Borough Council finds this wanton destruction of habitat and potential murder of wildlife? And he also included some photographs. From the response to that is, thank you for your question, Mr. Abbott. There is a requirement under the terms of license in place at Garfitts Park for the licensee to undertake grass cutting and other seasonal grounds maintenance. The use of a side-arm flail mower is recognised as one of the methods of ground maintenance, and it is considered appropriate for this hedgerow. Officers will, however, review the timing of hedge cutting next year to ensure it takes place at the optimum time for the wildlife. So I have received a supplementary question also. I thank the officer for writing the answer for the leader, and I am surprised that the leader finds the most appropriate method of hedgerow management is a flail mower. Every guideline I have suggests that the flail mower is a lazy method due to the damage caused to the branches and the risk of disease entering the plant. Therefore, may I request the correct research is carried out and a proper written policy drawn up to ensure the kind of destruction is not justified in the future. Well, thank you for your supplementary, Mr. Abbott. I am quite prepared. Amongst our latest policies going forward, the environment is very dear to this council, and I very much look forward to seeing a policy drawn up to cover this. To be quite candid with you, flail mowing at this time of year, to take the whole side, both sides down, certainly within the drainage boards, would be frowned upon. It's not something you actually do. So I will actually request that we have a policy put in place so that this cannot happen again. As an antidote as well, obviously flailing causes lots of damage to the plant. I'm also in possession of a dog that damaged his paw because somebody failed to clean up a short time ago. And this also ought to be included in the policy, the fact that whoever does it leaves it pretty. Right, thank you for your question, Mr. Abbott. We'll move on to part 2 of the agenda. Recommendations from overview and scrutiny. Are there any recommendations? From
There are, Chairman, but they're contained within the reports on today's agenda.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we also have any recommendations from BTAC this time?
There are none for this meeting, Chairman. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So we move on to item 3. The first report this evening is on the recommendations from the Task and Finish Group's work on regulating and safeguarding Boston's economy. It is on page 5 of the agenda pack. And I believe Councillor Judith Skinner is here to present the report along with Christian Allen, the Assistant Director for Regulation. Thank you, Councillor Skinner. Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, Cabinet members. Last year, at a meeting of the Environment and Performance Committee, which I chair, committee members were appraised of ongoing public concern in respect of antisocial behaviour within the borough, particularly relating to the use and control of alcohol, both on and off premises in the town. Committee members agreed that it would be useful to undertake a piece of scrutiny work and establish a task and finish group in order to do so. Following an initial scoping meeting, the Task and Finish Group agreed that a review of the regulation and safeguarding arrangements for the economy of Boston should be undertaken to address public concerns. The Task and Finish Group diligently set about their task and talked to many stakeholders with an interest in the subject. And informed by the findings of the public consultation exercise that returned over 150 responses, stakeholders engaging, including the police, licensing professionals, community group representatives, and many partners, with discussions supported by data provided on antisocial behaviour, crime, and CCTV reports. The COVID pandemic has delayed the review. However, the Task and Finish Group concluded their work with a report to the Parent Committee on the 3rd of November 2020. The report and the supporting appendices that my committee received clearly demonstrated the diligence of members, officers and partners involved in the review and delivered 13 recommendations, which were robust and wholly supported by the committee. The request that before Cabinet is an invitation to thank members and officers of the Task and Finish Group and the Parent Committee for their outstanding work, accept the recommendations attached in Appendix A in their entirety, and agree to them being taken forward. Hence, the 2 recommendations before Cabinet this evening are: Cabinet determined to note the findings and to thank members and officers involved in the Task and Finish Group and the Environment and Performance Committee for their well-considered and thorough scrutiny work, and agree to accept their full recommendations at Appendix A. Number 2, that Cabinet delegate responsibility to the Assistant Director Regulation to take forward the recommendations in consultation with the relevant portfolio holder and Chair of Boston Town and Area Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Skinner. Do we have any questions? No indications. So I'm quite happy to be proposer for this one because the regulatory file comes under me. I will thank the chairman for the very thorough, and also the members that took part in this, the very thorough way that they've engaged on this task. And I fully support the recommendations and taking all the recommendations forward. Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
I'd second that, Chairman.
Thank you very much. So it's been moved and seconded. Jeanette, will you call out the members' names?
Certainly will, Chairman. Councillor Abbott.
Fully for.
Thank you. Councillor Austin.
For.
Councillor Griggs.
For.
Councillor Noble.
For.
Myself, Chairman.
For.
Councillor Stevens.
For.
And Councillor Welton.
4.
Thank you very much.
That's unanimous, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. We move on to item 4 on the agenda, which is the report on the Port of Boston Gateway to Growth, which is on 13 of the pack. And Councillor Welton will introduce. Councillor Welton.
Thank you very much. Good evening, councillors, cabinet officers. The report that we have in front of us tonight reflects the real economic opportunity that the borough and the wider geography of South East Lincolnshire has. The economic rationale behind the Gateway to Growth project is clear and will provide huge opportunities for local and sub-regional areas to strengthen their economies and add value to connectivity that supports the Midlands engine and the manufacturing belt of the UK. The vision to create a successful, resilient and connected economy chimes with Boston Borough Council's own economic strategy, investments and assets. And by working across the public and private sectors in partnership, we can create a super efficient logistics hub and through the Port of Boston be the catalyst which can compete on a national scale and deliver sustainable infrastructure that's fit for the future, enabling South East Lincolnshire to safeguard the existing 40,000 plus jobs and through new innovation create further employment opportunities to inspire our communities to realise their full potential and deliver a step change in economic, environmental and social regeneration. To deliver our economic vision and unlock the huge potential of the Gateway to Growth project, we need to invest and indeed support projects of significance that will open up and create economic interventions, stimulating a confident environment that retains and attracts businesses, builds on our diverse skill base and a physical, social and cultural infrastructure that builds the overall competitiveness of the area. Successful areas and regions capture and harness current and emerging opportunities from their local assets and investments, and where we see the Port of Boston affirming South East Lincolnshire as a place to invest. The Borough of Boston and South East Lincolnshire is a strategic economic location for food production, processing, logistics and storage of the associated supply chains. Centred between the manufacturing heartland of the Midlands and mainland Europe, the Port of Boston is suitably positioned to take advantage of the economic growth potential, including its multimodal connectivity through sea, road and rail, and the scaling up of fresh produce imports and exports through proximity to the Dutch ports of Amsterdam and Rotterdam. The Lincolnshire food sector is based on both strong local and regional food production, including the receiving and processing of millions of tonnes of imports each year, and therefore an efficient, timely and reliable national and international logistics are essential. The food industry is keen to deliver post-Brexit growth, and to that end, we believe that the Port of Boston, being the front and centre regional gateway hub, delivering the right skills through the new Centre of Food and Fresh Produce Logistics, creating the right environment for business investment, delivering much improved connectivity, and through the support of this council, neighbouring authorities and the business community, through opportunities set out in the paper before you, the Gateway to Growth project is deliverable. So based on that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move the recommendations as in the paper. But one thing I would like to do is ask Mrs. Sachs if she could please explain to us the budget that we are looking at tapping into, what it means. We all know what the words mean, but it would be very helpful for people outside of this meeting to understand that we don't have a money tree, but we do have money that we can tap into, and where that is and what the legalities around that are, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Welton. The Transformation Fund is a fund that the Council has in existence, which is designed to support transformation both internally and externally. And the word transformation, it can be quite a blob of a word, for want of a better expression, because it doesn't really say anything. But the idea around that is that it actually changes and develops and brings forward new initiatives that can bring either efficiencies of scale, and in this particular instance, it can seek to deliver economic investment, increasing jobs, and raising the profile of the borough in terms of this particular project. In consultation with the Section 151 officer, he felt this was a good use. This was an appropriate and good use of the Transformation Fund, intended to unlock that kind of activity within Boston as a place. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions at all? Absolute silence. So Nigel's moved it. I'm quite happy to second it. I really thank you, the economic team, for their hard work on this. Absolutely superb. Let's get Boston further open for business. I haven't seen the ferry go past the end of the road yet, but I dare say you guys will be working on that at some stage. So, Jeanette, it's been moved and it's been seconded. Will you take the names, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, if members again could indicate whether they're for or against or wish to abstain. Councillor Abbott.
For.
Councillor Austin.
For.
Councillor Griggs.
For.
Councillor Noble.
For.
Yourself, Chairman.
For.
Councillor Stevens.
For.
Councillor Welton.
For.
That's unanimous. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. So the next item tonight is item 5, and that is the report on rough sleeping accommodation programme on page 27 of the pack. That's Councillor Griggs to present. Councillor Griggs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to go through the report in its entirety. We've all had a chance to read it, and obviously we've discussed it at briefing. I'll just give a basic overview. So the government placed emphasis on addressing rough sleeping during COVID-19 pandemic, which was really useful because it enabled local authorities to address issues that normally there wasn't funding available for, and it enabled government to see better evidence bases where support had worked. So following on from that, we were successful in accessing additional funding for emergency accommodation provision and repurposed existing rough sleeping funding to ensure a proactive and effective response. The next phase from the government was to make accommodation available longer term for those who had been accommodating during the pandemic, and obviously had been able to access support services that normally weren't available to them or had been difficult to access. So the aim of this funding was to look at a longer term basis of about 30 years through the rough sleeping accommodation programme. In August this year, local authorities were invited to bid to the government's rough sleeping accommodation programme, and local authority bidders to this capital programme were required to have either Homes England invested partner status, which we don't have, or work with a suitably experienced partner in this place. So we submitted a bid endorsing Framework Housing as the delivery partner, and it's been accepted by MHCLG and Homes England, who have agreed an allocation of £739,297, which I think we'll all agree is absolutely fantastic news for the residents of Boston. And the aim of that money is to deliver 10 units of accommodation in the borough of Boston. So the aim of these units is to be available for occupation by the 31st of March, and the allocation for these units would prioritise rough sleepers and those at risk of rough sleeping. Homes England are currently in the final stages of due diligence process and are preparing to issue contracts. So there are 2 recommendations on the report in front of us this evening, and that's that Cabinet members agree to a partnership arrangement with Framework to allow the delivery of 10 units for accommodation through the rough sleeping accommodation programme, and that Cabinet members delegate to the portfolio holder of Housing and Communities the development of the local lettings policy to ensure that the units of accommodation delivered through this scheme are allocated to rough sleepers or those at risk of rough sleeping. And that these units are available for a minimum of 30 years. Just as a slight bit of more information for anyone who may be present in the meeting and not familiar with the report, we were unable to bid directly for the money, because, as I said before, we needed investment partner status, and within the timescales available, we couldn't achieve that. There was also only one bid, whilst other housing agencies were approached about providing the service. The only bid that came in was Frameworks. So literally the alternative would have been do nothing, don't provide any support for the people who are entrenched rough sleepers in need of this asset, or look to support Framework, and they work extremely closely with us anyway in our current systems. And again, just for assurances for Cabinet and members of the public watching, the money will be awarded directly to Framework, and it will be their responsibility to manage it, repair it, all the maintenance costs. There's no financial implications for the borough outside of our normal service delivery. So I'm happy to propose that, Mr. Chairman. I'm also happy to take any questions and looking for a seconder.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Griggs. Really great report. Councillor Stevens has raised a hand. Would you like to come in now, please, Councillor Stevens?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Leader, I'd be happy to second Martin, Councillor Griggs, but I'd also like to say that I don't think there's going to be any person in this whole town of Boston that won't be delighted to know that there's help on the way for rough sleepers, because I think everybody's heart goes out to people that are sat in the cold, in the wet, because they've got nowhere better to go. So I'm most delighted that this is coming through, and as I said, happy to support and second Martin Griggs. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Welton.
Thank you. Yes, I mirror what Councillor Stevens saying, and what a wonderful position we're in to have this in our town to help the most vulnerable people in our society. There are two comments, well, one question and one comment really. My comment is that I'm surprised and a little disappointed that we had no other housing providers that were willing to come forward and assist us with putting this together, especially as we've got some very large housing providers based in the town as well. And the question would be that this is a vast sum of money, and that's going to do a very important job for us in assisting, as we've said, very vulnerable people. Who is going to scrutinise on a regular basis that they are actually providing the service that is being paid for? And it might not be money that's coming out of the council's budget, but it is taxpayers' money. So how are we to be reassured that that money is spent appropriately and is delivering what we hope it is going to deliver for these people and for our town? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Welton. Councillor Griggs, would you like to come back?
Yep, I will. So obviously we'll create a local lettings policy to enable a clear framework for prioritising and allocating, and obviously Framework will have to adhere to that. We'll also create a service level agreement between us and Framework to basically set down rules for what happens. MHCLG also, obviously, we've given us money. It's based on we have to return evidence periodically back to them to make sure that it is doing what the money's supposed to do. In terms of housing providers not coming forward, that's potentially due to the short turnaround of time that the government seem to give us every time a grant appears at the moment, or potentially due to, obviously, many of our entrenched rough sleepers have many issues that makes them deemed higher risk. So, higher risk of damaging property, etc. And some of our housing providers, unfortunately, aren't keen to take those risks, such as the joys of privatising social housing, that we're then left in a position where some of our really entrenched rough sleepers who really do need a leg up in the world at present, and hopefully won't be soon thanks to this money, unable to gain accommodation because unfortunately, government's given them the freedom to reject people who they feel are not likely to pay rent or cause damage or nuisance. I hope that answers your question, Councillor Welton.
It does, and your comments reflects the feelings I have. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions?
My hand is
Councillor
raised.
Noble.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, just comment really and a question. I was very pleased to Councillor Griggs has just told us that through the service level agreement, evidence will need to be provided to MHCLG periodically that the monies are going to be well spent. And can I just ask Councillor Griggs this question? Given that there's just under 4 months to actually deliver these units because they have to be ready for occupation by the 31st of March, do we know the location they've identified for these units of housing?
Councillor Griggs?
Yes, we do. I'm quite happy. I'll send a round robin email to all councillors, not just Cabinet, giving them some details of the scheme so that obviously if they're approached by any residents, they then have the information at hand. Hopefully that will help.
Thank you, Councillor Griggs.
Thank you. I really welcome this paper. As most of you know, I sometimes, well, over the last few years, have helped out in the night shelter. This is really good that it provides people with the opportunity of changing their lives round. So it's been proposed, it's been seconded. Jeanette, would you like to call out the Cabinet members' names?
Thank you, Chairman. If you could indicate if you're for or against or wish to abstain. Councillor Abbott.
For.
Councillor Austin.
For.
Councillor Griggs.
For.
Councillor Noble.
For.
Yourself, Chairman.
For.
Councillor Stevens.
For.
And Councillor Welton.
For.
That's carried unanimously, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Jeanette. It's a really sterling piece of work. Really pleased about that people have got the opportunity to move on. The next item is item 6, and this report on the Towns Fund Accelerator Project Experience Boston, which Councillor Richard Austin will present. Richard.
Thank you. This is very much a good news item for Boston. The £80,000 Towns Fund Accelerator grant and project has been previously agreed by Cabinet. £60,000 of this grant is to be used to deliver an interpretation scheme, and because of the £25,000 limit in our procurement rules, this has to come to Cabinet again. This is the second phase and extension of the work to develop interpretation schemes and to design, manufacture and install signage and street interpretation furniture relating to Boston's heritage and associated heritage artwork. This will go hand in glove with and enhance initiatives at various locations such as the Boston Boys Project, the Pilgrim Memorial and Structures on the Edge sites, Custom House Quay, Central Park, plus other town centre locations to be agreed with the consultants. The scheme will achieve the delivery of quality enhancements in the public realm, developing Boston's historic and cultural offer and its attractions as a destination, as well as a place for people to live, work, and invest. The grant agreement was given the formal go-ahead in September, and it dictates that work must be initiated and completed by the 31st of March 2021. The first phase of this interpretation and place branding scheme was carried out by Placemark. It is therefore sensible and practical for them to complete the second part of the project for £60,000. Placemark specialises in this type of work and comes with a very good track record, both from the phase 1 work they have completed in Boston and other towns and cities around the country. Boston has contract and procurement procedure rules with a 25,000 threshold, as I've said, above which it's necessary to seek Cabinet approval for an extension, as in this case. It would not be possible to meet the 31st of March deadline using normal procurement avenues. The graphic and sign toolkit you have in the report was produced during the initial phase of the project. This Town Fund Accelerator Grant is a precursor and related to the main Town Fund deal. I therefore propose that a procurement exemption is approved by Cabinet to allow the direct award of a contract to Placemark for £60,000. Also, that the wider scope of the project delivery and work with partners is noted. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Richard. So you've moved it. I'll be quite happy to second that, but we'll ask if anybody's got any questions. Anybody got any questions? Thank you, Jonathan.
Yes, it's just regarding the rationale by which we're obviating the normal procurement rules. I'm just reading what it says here. Rationale in Boston Borough Council contract procurement procedures can be found in section 1, paragraph 3, 1.2(1) in brackets, which states there may be a legitimate case for exemption where the contract can only be supplied or provided by one specialist firm. I just doubt whether the Placemark is the only possible supply or provider, and I just wonder, given that they've done work for us before, and albeit they may have done it well, whether it was just not quite convenient just to allow them to continue the work. It wouldn't be good, I think, from the council's point of view, if it could be opened up competition, and perhaps we could have had some other bids, bearing in mind that we originally approved this thing in full council on the 10th of August. That's just a comment, but if it does enhance the tourist experience in the town, it must be welcomed, of course, because we want to attract as many tourists as we can to the town. Thank you, Councillor Skinner.
Thank you.
Can I just say that the timescale was such that there was no other option or avenue to follow. The approval didn't come through until September for the go-ahead, and there just wasn't time to get everything in place and the work done in the time scale that we had to work within.
Thank you, Richard. Councillor Welton, you indicated, sir?
Yes, thank you. Prior to the lockdown situation and the COVID situation, I used to sit in the market square every lunchtime with my pasty and cup of coffee and watch people come across the bridge, and quite often you'd have people stood around not knowing whether to go in the church, go for a walk around town, and many a time I'd have people say, "Excuse me, could you tell me where so-and-so is," or what have you. And we did have some signs, but they were very limited. So I'm really, really pleased that, you know, once we're open again and the coaches start coming in from around the country, as they always have done, that people will have a much better experience, a bigger understanding of the history of the town and the landmarks that we have that are world class. And, you know, this to me is something that is very close to my heart, as being the ex-portfolio for Town Centre. And at the time that I did what Richard's doing now, there was no budget in order to do this on the scale that we're doing it now. So, you know, I'm really, really pleased that we're going to have something that will really help people understand our town direct them around our town, show them the jewels of our town, and help them to take back to the areas they come from, good memories of where we are, and spread the word that Boston is a jewel. Thank you, Richard. You've done some fantastic work on this. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for that comment. Yes, it's certainly going to enhance the visitor experience. We all know that Boston's got a very rich heritage and history, and the visitors to the town are going to be much more aware of it as they walk around both the town and the area because of all this work.
Thank you, Nigel. Thank you, Richard. Really enthusiastic. You know, the first phase of signage was really brought in and done very well. This you know, whether 60k will be enough to get a sign on everything, because we've really got a lot to see out there. It's just that we're not very good at telling people where it is. So hopefully that will get over that one. So it's been proposed, it's been seconded. Jeanette, would you like to ask people whether they're for or against?
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Abbott.
For.
Councillor Austin.
For.
Councillor Griggs.
For.
Councillor Noble.
For.
Yourself, Chairman.
For.
Councillor Stevens.
For.
Councillor Welton.
For.
That's carried.
Thank you very much, Jeanette. That's great. We move on now to item 7, which is the CCTV annual report update. There is actually no changes in this document compared to the last one. It's just that as a council, we choose to review this document every 3 years. There's been no changes of legislation in this last 3-year period, so it's really a renewal. So I propose that we adopt the report presented at Appendix A, and it becomes effective from Monday the 14th of December 2020 and will remain effective until further review. Are there any questions? Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Tracy. So it's been moved, it's been seconded. Jeanette, can we move to Cabinet
Yes,
members?
Chairman. I'll take the vote. All those in favour, Councillor Abbott.
For.
Councillor Austin.
For.
Councillor Griggs.
For.
Councillor Noble.
For.
Yourself, Chairman.
For.
Councillor Stevens.
For.
Councillor Welton.
For.
That's carried unanimously, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeanette. So now we move on to item 8, which is the Public Spaces Protection Order, or the PSPO, alcohol review. Once again, this document has not changed. It's just part of its cycle. We know how effective this is because some of the performance measures are recorded in our figures. So what I'm going to do, the paper's there, it's not changed. So I propose the recommendation in the report, which is that the Public Spaces Protection Order area alcohol and its enforcement provisions are extended for another 3-year period, commencing from the 12th of January 2021. And the area remains the same as the original order, which came in force on the 12th of January 2015, and which has also extended for a further period from the 12th of January 2018. So I've proposed it. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Tracy. Do we have any questions at all? We've been proposed, we've seconded. So Jeanette, would you like to call out the cabinet names?
Thank you, Chairman. If we could indicate for, against or abstain. Councillor Abbott.
For.
Councillor Austin.
For.
Councillor Griggs.
For.
Councillor Noble.
For.
Yourself, Chairman.
For.
Councillor Stevens.
For.
Councillor Welton.
For.
That's carried unanimously, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. So we'll move on to item 9, which is the report on Air Quality Action Plan progress report, which will be presented by Yvonne, who wasn't going to be here. So we're lucky.
Absolutely. Thank you, Leader. I'm happy to introduce this report to you tonight on the air quality report. A report on the Council's revised Air Quality Action Plan was brought before Cabinet in May 2020 to seek Cabinet's formal approval of the Air Quality Action Plan and its submission to DEFRA. An Air Quality Action Plan is required where air quality management areas have been declared because of a failure to meet the national air quality standards. The Air Quality Action Plan sets out a series of actions the Council will pursue to improve air quality in these areas. Cabinet approved the Air Quality Action Plan and its submission to DEFRA and requested that a report be brought back to Cabinet following DEFRA approval to report on progress on the plan. This report is to fulfill the Cabinet's request. The draft Air Quality Action Plan was submitted to DEFRA in June 2020, and on the 24th of July 2020, notification was received from DEFRA that measures put forward in this Air Quality Action Plan are deemed to be well considered, and hence the Air Quality Action Plan as a whole is considered acceptable. There were, however, a number of comments and recommendations made by DEFRA regarding the draft report. Two of these comments resulted in minor changes to the Air Quality Action Plan in terms of its commentary and the addition of a further Air Quality Action Plan measure. The report before you comments upon these. The final Air Quality Action Plan has been published on the Council's website. Despite significant disruption caused by COVID-19 pandemic, and that has prevented some measures being taken forward at the current time, and the relatively short time frame since the plan's delivery process has been made in a number of areas. A list of progress against individual actions within the plan can be found in Appendix 1 of this report. The report also advises that air quality within Boston's Bargott Bridge air quality management area has improved since the air quality management area was declared in 2005. It's improved to an extent that DEFRA has commented in the last two appraisals of the annual status reports. We should consider revocation of this Air Quality Action Plan, air quality management area. The Bargott Bridge air quality management area was always more marginal in terms of breaches of air quality standards, and the improvement seen is likely as a result of improved vehicle performance in terms of emissions. The modern Euro Class 6 engines producing 2/3 less nitrogen dioxide than the Euro 4 engines, the best standards that were in 2005. As a result, a separate report will be brought regarding possible revocation of the Bargate Bridge Air Quality Management Area in due course. Recommendation that Cabinet support the aims and measures within the Air Quality Action Plan and delegate Assistant Director of Regulations and the portfolio holder for environmental services to ensure its advancement and provide progress reports to Cabinet and or scrutiny committees at appropriate junctures. And I'd like to move this report and the recommendations, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. Very thorough. I'm quite happy to second that. I think we'll see some real big improvements as people switch to electric vehicles as well. You've already mentioned Tier 6 vehicles, which are significantly improved over Tier 4 vehicles. Fantastic. Do we have any other questions? Jonathan.
Thank you, Councillor Skene. Yes, positive points. First of all, I think we ought to note that the council has been doing its bit in a small way to reduce pollution, in that we have had these 23 charging points installed in 6 of our car parks. So helping people with electric vehicles or people with hybrid vehicles. That's also, I think, the fact that the air quality assessment unit at Bargate Bridge is going to possibly be removed, shows there has been some improvement in air quality there. That's good. I thought it was very pleasing what Councillor Stephen said about modern vehicle emissions with modern engines, a 2/3 reduction, which is good. The thing I would also like to comment on is the poverty of ambition on behalf of Lincolnshire County Council when it comes to highway traffic measures and road junction improvement. Now, we read from this on page 102. Originally, they were looking at 9 potential road junction areas for improvement. They decided only to progress with 3 of those, one's at Bargate Roundabout, one's at Bank Street, and one's at Lister Way. It would have been instructive to have found out what those other 6 areas that they deemed were not suitable for road junction improvement, because we know that the traffic congestion and the subsequent air pollution is one of the 5 top issues for Boston's residents. That's all. Thank you, Councillor Skene.
Thank you very much. Yvonne?
Well, I've nothing to add. Apart from obviously LCC isn't Boston Borough Council, so what's going on in LCC isn't always, we're not always privy to that information straight away, but I'm sure in the fullness of time Councillor Noble will get a satisfactory reply to his interest in questions.
Thank you, Yvonne. I'm pretty sure that we can help shape some of that with our next transport strategy, which is the way to do it. I quite look forward to helping shape that and make it a document that actually happens rather than the one that hasn't. So, any further questions? No, it's been proposed. It's been seconded. So, Jeanette?
Thank you, Chairman. If members again could indicate whether they're for or against or wish to abstain. Councillor Abbott?
For.
Councillor Austin?
For.
Councillor Griggs?
For.
Councillor Noble?
For.
Yourself, Chairman?
For.
Councillor Stevens?
For.
Councillor Welton?
For.
That's carried unanimously, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Another piece of positive news. It's improving, which has got to be good. So we move on to the final item on tonight's agenda, which is the Q2 report, performance, risk and finance. basically on the performance side, the COVID-19 is clearly having a massive impact in some areas of council, and different sorts of effects in others. But our teams really are doing a great job across the board. I'm really pleased with the way they continue to do their jobs under these very difficult circumstances. The performance figures are there, they've happened. Let's say some good news stories amongst that, even though the times are quite hard. So I'm going to take those pretty much as read, and I'm going to ask the more important bits of risk and finance at this point. So I'm going to ask Councillor Noble to introduce his piece on risk and finance, please.
Thank you, Councillor Skinner. Yes, my presentation is really in 4 parts. I'll just briefly talk about risk and 1 or 2 comments about performance, because it falls within my area of interest and concern. I'll be talking about some of the financial figures, and then lastly I'll be seeking to move the recommendations which you'll find on page 115 with regard to specific finance recommendations. Now, in terms of risk, obviously the 2 biggest risks facing the council are housing, that is housing delivery, the delivery of affordable housing, and secondly the budget, which I'll be coming to shortly. In terms of performance, I'm just going to pick out a couple of things within my area of responsibility. And they are, for example, the council, the benefit processing times, both for new claims and for those people with the change of circumstances, are well within target. Similarly, council tax processing times for new claims and also for change in circumstances are also well within target. In terms of areas for concern, they are car parking, which I'll come to later, and council tax. Now, if one looks at the figures, our actual collection rate in Q2 was 43.05%. The target was 45. That's approximately a 2% difference. That equates to about £74,000 in revenue terms. But considering the problems we've had that the lockdowns had on our residents, I think the collection rates held up remarkably well. So I'm going to move on now to the financial aspect of it. I'm just trying to paint you really a big picture. Obviously, the 2 main things that concerned us in this quarter were the COVID-19 lockdown, which continued through the second quarter. And as a result, a lot of our income generating activities remained closed. Restrictions were eased from the 4th of July. And obviously the Cabinet back in 29th of June approved free shopper car parking, which remained in force during this quarter. Now, the net service expenditure shows a variance of 1...
You call me back during 9 till 5?
Pardon?
Carry on, Jonathan.
Thank you. Right, the net service expenditure variance is potentially 1,574,000. However, we have to take into account the monies we have received from the government as regards COVID-19. Okay, now that's had a big, the 3 most significant areas obviously were parking, approximately 600,000, leisure, 700,000, and planning, 176,000. But we have submitted a claim to the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government for the 4-month period, April to July, for 425,000. And we will be submitting further claims, one in December covering August to November, and again in April covering the period December to March. Now, if we get that figure we're anticipating, the sum from the government next 425,000, and you take that away from our perceived deficit, it leaves a deficit of only about 173,000. So the position is not quite as dire as one might think. In fact, in terms of COVID monies, as a total, we have received 1,185,000, and that's come in 4 tranches. The latest one was for 304,000. Going on to the property funds, we've had a net fall in our property fund valuations of 649,000. Not surprising, given that the property funds obviously have a heavy investment in properties of all kinds. So our investment income is scheduled to be 804,000. Our management fees will be 213,000, And after we've paid our fees, that will give us a net return of 3.12%. So again, to try and paint a full brief picture, we have so far received 5,311,000 Section 31 monies from central governments. From the Ministry of Housing and Local Governments, we've had 1,185,000. In business grants from the government, we've had 14,430,000, and that's helped 1,245 local businesses. And obviously, we've received £750,000 from the town's fund accelerator monies that's gone into our capital programme. So the financial picture this year is not looking nearly as bad as one may originally have thought, given all the problems caused by COVID and the subsequent 2 lockdowns now we've had to endure. The more difficult time, I think, will come in the following year. So it just remains to be seen how quickly our economy will recover, how successful the vaccines are. So then I'm going to move on now to the recommendations, which I mentioned earlier. They're on page 115. We have 4. So I'll just read those out to you again. So they are, excuse me, in the Controlling Migration Fund, just please hang on a second. I need to just find my places. Sorry, going back again. We've first of all got to approve the reserve movements. They're in table 6 on page 156, movement in the reserves. We have to approve the updated capital programme, which you'll find in table 8 on page 158. We have to approve the supplementary estimates in respect of the Accelerated Towns Fund. That's table 11 on page 160. And lastly, the supplementary estimates in respect of COVID-19 be approved. They're in table 12 on page 161. So I move that we accept those recommendations. And I'd look for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Skinner.
I'm quite happy to second that, but obviously we needed to agree to note the information on Q2 as well.
Yes,
so
which
just
I have been through. Thank you.
Yeah, we can get there between us. Thank you very much. Very thorough report. Any comments or questions from anybody? Right, it's been moved, it's been seconded. Jeanette, would you like to read out the Cabinet members' names, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Councillor Abbott.
4.
Councillor Austin.
4.
Councillor Griggs.
4.
Councillor Noble.
4.
Yourself, Chairman.
4.
Councillor Stevens.
4.
Councillor Welton.
4.
That's carried unanimously, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeanette. So that was the final item on tonight's agenda. So that concludes the meeting. And I thank everybody for their attendance. That's members and officers. Just remember to beat the COVID-19. We're at tier 3. It's very, very high at the moment. Remember to be safe. Hands, face and space. Thank you. Good night. Bye.
Good night, everybody. Bye.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.